All right, I'm excited to give this workshop. This is actually a workshop I have not ran in a very long time, actually, because it's something that is for live demos, in-person demos. Now you can incorporate this obviously virtually as well. But I just, on my live demos, I used to crush this. And so for me, and Claudia can tell you, when COVID hit, everything I used to do live, I'm like, just can't do it anymore. My brain could not function to think, how do I do this virtually? And so we've been able to move a lot of things over. And so this is my first time teaching this since COVID, by the way. So I'm super excited to bring the goods, because this is something applicable for any business. And right after this, we're going to have a great Saturday morning phone jam to make sure we're finishing strong and building some incredible momentum into the playoffs here. So you guys should have received the handout. I also put it in the chat. We can repost it if we need, but it's in the GroupMe as well. And so this is the handout that I'm going to be walking through. But y'all, first of all, I want to say that this is so freaking huge. Like, who here would be excited about just like having more appointments booked for you? Raise your hand. Anybody? More appointments booked for you. So I want to tell you guys where this actually stemmed from, because basically back in 2003, there was a point where there was a law that came out across the nation. This wasn't for Cutco, but it affected us. And it was something called the Do Not Call Registry, right? And so people at that point, like later it changed, and then people could like opt in or out or whatever. But at that point, when the law first came out, you could not call someone unless you know them or they have said, yes, please call me. Okay. And so leads, nope, can't call leads unless you know them. Or they said, yes, have CJ call me. Like they already said yes. Okay. So it was a very crazy time for our business. We lost a lot of Cutco sales professionals during that transition because they couldn't, they just were like, I can't function like that, right? They were just used to cold calling, whatever leads, recommendations, whatever names they found, whatever names the customers gave them, they just would just call through them. And they're like, I don't know how I'm going to be able to have a business if I can't call my leads, right? So a lot of people left. Then there were some of us that were brought into basically like a mastermind, like a focus group with the president of our company. And they said, okay, we are going to, we want to do a test group, and we're going to see if we can figure some things out. And we're going to see if we can keep this business alive, doing it a different way. And so this is, by the way, that was the last time we went through a major shift in our company. And then COVID, brought another major shift to our company. So I said, let's see if we can figure this thing out. Let's see if we can, find a way for Cutco not to go under if nobody wants to work here if they can't call their leads. We just got so used to like calling our recommendations. And so this was birthed out of a necessity to keep the business alive, because there wasn't an opportunity to do a demo unless a customer had said yes. Okay. The laws changed later, but this was something that stuck with me in my business, and that I taught to so many of my representatives, and has helped, I don't know, hundreds of people over the last, 20 years, as well as, or I guess 16 years, because I haven't done it since COVID, but also allows for so much more business, like easily, right? So again, I'm going to teach you guys, this is super simple and with live demos, but again, you guys can also have them do this virtually. You just might not get the alley-oop part of it. Sometimes you can, if you're on Zoom with them, and they call their friend, you're like, just put them on speaker. And I can just say hi real quick. So CJ, if I'm on demo with you, and then at the end I do, I asked you for the yeses, which I'm going to walk you guys through, and then I say, CJ, is there any way you can try to get in contact with them right now? I'm like, and just let them know. And we have the coaching sheet, which I need to give you guys as well, super important. And so you walk them through Like, just let them know that I'm about to graduate at A&M. I was in the Corps, did this, working this this summer to get some great experience, business skills, communication skills, and really networking, like getting a chance to meet so many different people. And I'm just really excited about, growing my network as well as my, professional and personal skills. I'm like, so just let them know I get paid just to show it. There's no obligation to buy. And this is really important, that you guys say this. So I'm like, yeah, there's, excuse me, there's no obligation to buy, because you don't want them calling their friend and being like, hey, so did you want to buy some knife, or hey, did you need any knives? Like, that's like I hate when they do that. So you don't want that to be what's happening. Okay, so you actually coach them, and I'm going to walk you guys through the coaching sheet, what to say and then what not to say. All right. You guys can make a sheet for this, on you can make a sheet for this, that you show them a picture of. You guys can put it in your slideshow. You guys can put it in the chat if you're on Zoom at the end, but showing them like the actual coaching sheet. So that's what I would do at this point in my business, is like I would actually email them the morning of, or the morning prior, probably the morning of, when I wake up and I do my morning calls. I would email all my customers for the day. Like, can't wait to see you at 2 o'clock. Like, whenever they're like, I'd have like an email ready that I would just send out that morning and say, hey, CJ, can't wait to see you guys today at 10 a.m. This is a PowerPoint that I'm going to be walking through, as we chat, along with the Cutco stuff. And there I would always put, I would have my slideshow, and I would definitely have my coaching sheet. Those are the two things that I would put, attachments in that email that I would send as a reminder that morning. Again, that's what I would be doing if I was, this was my business today, in terms of doing demos. All right. One sec. So you guys want to make sure that, you think about, and we can talk, depending on what your business looks like and where your demos are, how you integrate this. But definitely, this was my bread and butter on live demos. All right, so here's how this rolls. One, you have to crush your recommendations. This is not a recommendations talk, by the way. This is how to get more of the best appointments. All right. So this is once you have received recos. Got it. So if you need help with recos, that's something we can help you with. Number one, VIA recommendations approach. And Claudia, I don't know if you can post that in the chat just for anyone who doesn't have it. But just like crushing that at the end of the presentation, and we'll be actively working on this Monday. But at the end of the presentation, when you wrap up, so one, you got to share your goals. They have to like you, right? If they don't like you, why the heck would they introduce you to all their friends, right? They have to think about you as more of the knife salesperson. If they're just thinking about, oh, Pedro, Tony, he's selling knives, you need knives, right? You're going to get very few recommendations, because they're like, I don't know anyone that need knives, or maybe I have one or two that maybe, right? So they can't be thinking about you as the knife person, because in order to maximize your recs. So are you sharing where you're going, what you're doing? Are they excited to be a part of that? And then at the end of the presentation, this is just a recap on recs. At the end of the presentation, are you making them feel like a rock star for doing the appointment with you? Those who are at the boot camp, I talked about this, like, this is so huge. And so at the end of the presentation, you want to make them feel like a rock star for just doing the appointment. Okay. So if they didn't buy, they feel bad they didn't buy. And they're like, oh, I'm so sorry, I couldn't get anything today. You don't want them feeling bad when you're asking for recs, because you're not going to get a lot of recs, because they don't want their friends to feel bad. Okay. So at the end, if they didn't buy, I'm like, hey, by the way, how did you enjoy the presentation? Like, how did I do? And they're like, you did great, honey. I'm so sorry I couldn't get anything today. I'm like, no. I'm like, honestly, Miss Susie, thank you. So I know I said this before, but I just want to say again, thank you so much for just taking time to do the presentation with me. I'm like, I know there are a million other things you could be doing right now. Moms are so busy. So I just want to say thank you for taking time for me, because seriously, just doing the appointment with me, like, that's what helped me the most. If I do 20 appointments a week, if I complete 20 every week, I will hit my goal this summer. So thank you so much for helping me get one step closer to completing my goal. Cool. And then actually, do you remember in the beginning of the presentation, I talked about my sponsorship and how there was a free way to help just by introducing me to nice people? I'm like, cool. I'm like, well, here's where you can, I'm like, excuse me. Um, here's where I would have them. Um, one sec. Okay. So at the end of the presentation. So here's where I would have them fill out just answer that last question real quick. Just, good, honest feedback. You don't have to make me sound better than I am. It actually just helps me continue to improve. So that would be awesome if you could fill that out real quick, and then I'll let you know about the sponsorship. They do that. And I'm like, all right, awesome. I'm like, so do you remember the sponsorship I told you about in the beginning? All right. And then again, those who have seen this, I know that we have some newbies in the room here, but those who have seen this before, all I'm doing is I am going back to my sponsorship page. So let me go ahead and share my screen with you guys. All right. So in my presentation, like I pull this back up when I'm chatting with them, and I'm like, hey, Miss Susie, do you remember the sponsorship? So first, when I'm saying thank you so much for doing the appointment with me, and I'll run a full workshop on this next week for those who haven't seen it, and just kind of review this. But I go back here to my demo goal. And so when they didn't buy, I'm like, Miss Susie, I just want to say thank you so much. I'm like, oh, I'm so sorry I couldn't get. I'm like, oh no, don't even worry about the right side. Don't even worry about the sales side. The most important thing is my demo goal. I know that if I complete, and for me, my summer was 25. I'm like, if I do 25 a week for the next 10 weeks, and I just consistently do 25 appointments a week, I will hit my goal. I'm like, so thank you so much for helping me get one step closer. Right. And so I fill out their little box. Like I'll just like make a copy of the color, or fill out another box. I actually used to put their initials in them. And so I need to update this, but I love having put their initials so that they see that. I'm like CC, and they have that. And then I'm like, and then do you remember where I showed you the sponsorship? Like, yeah, I'm like, okay, here's what you can really help me out. So I get paid every time I show Cutco, what I can only call people I've been personally recommended to. And so what I need you to do is like, while I'm put my stuff online and, finish, if you're live, finish cleaning up, is jot down, the first like 200 to 300 people to come to mind that you think could help you. I'm like, I'm just kidding. I'm like, you're totally welcome to put 20 or 30, but 200 to 300, but 20, 30 is fine. And I'm not looking for anyone you think would buy, just anyone super nice like you to take a look. And so as I mentioned, every single appointment that I do, like that's my biggest goal. And so this helps me get closer to that goal. And so here's how my sponsorship works. When I get 50 sponsors, I get $150 reward. All you have to do to be a sponsor is jot down 10 names. So let's say you upload 30 names like Armando did. You would be a 3-time sponsor. Let's say you got 20 like Julian Hiroki, you'd be a 2-time sponsor, and even if you only got 1 like Cassandra, you're still a sponsor, like even if you only have 10. But like my girlfriend Naomi, she got 120 from a customer, so that would be a 12-time sponsor. Joelle got 60, that's a 6-time sponsor. You get the deal. I actually made the company made this super easy, so you actually don't have to like handwrite these. Actually, the app that you just filled out that info on it, they have it so you can actually go right through, and then you go through the rest of your, explain that and like do your recs. Then you help them get to the next sponsorships. Cool. So now we're gonna pick up at the end of that, and so now we've done that. We've showed them. We've showed them we've gotten the leads. You want to maximize your leads, brainstorm as much as possible, and now we go into today's lesson, right, which is always having more of the best appointments. And so the first step is you have to qualify your recommendations. Okay. And so you might, if you spend a lot of time and your demo takes longer, like you might want to make your demo a little bit longer, like I'm pretty fast. And so my demos were an hour and 15 minutes apart. But when I started doing this, I gave myself an extra 20 minutes or so. And so I started booking them an hour and 45. And the only reason was because we would literally spend like 30 minutes on recommendations. Now, today's world, you guys don't have to have them handwrite it. So recommendations are faster, but if they want to call 5 of their friends for you, that's going to take another 10, 15 minutes, maybe 20. I had a lady call 36 people. She only reached 12 of them for me, but it took her like 40 minutes. I was not going to rush that. Okay. Anna and James Hayden had purchased almost $7,000 from me. And so this, and then, I had another customer about $3,700, right? And gave me 36 recommended, but they called everybody. And so I don't, they told me about everyone, called everyone. And so like really helped me build my business. And so that is time. Like I spend more time on rapport and Rex than I do on the actual demo. And those of you who are new, you're like, my demo takes forever. It'll get faster. Every time you do it, you're going to get a little bit more and more comfortable with it. That's why we start with people that we know. Okay. So at the end, I want to qualify my Rex. So knowing more helps you build stronger connections at the beginning. And it helps you strengthens, like just have long-term customers or long-term clients versus one-time customers. And so Ricky, I was mentioning some of this on Thursday's workshop, right? And so where we were talking about like the rapport starts on the phone. And so I love knowing about people because when I actually call them, I know like first I want to know how to pronounce everybody's name. So when I get their referrals, I open your app. I would look at my notebook and I'd say, hey, real quick, just to make sure I can say everyone's name properly. Jalen, Tyrion, Brashawn, Kathy, Sandra, Matthew, Genesis, Aria, and how about if they said Aria, right? And they're like, no, it's Aria. I'm like, okay, great. Like, I want to know how to pronounce their name. And I would put that in their notes if their name was phonetically, like if it looks a certain way, but it was said differently, like I would actually write it out phonetically in my notes in my app under them. So when I call them, I don't butcher their name, right? If your friend knows you, let me just ask, who here's ever had their name butchered? Raise your hand if you've ever had your name butchered. Okay. Oh, Ruth, I know you have, girl. They call me, they call me Christensen. Even when my maiden name is Vasquez, they would be like, hi, is Miss Velasquez there? And I'm like, nope, no Velasquez here, and so that is something that like friends know how to say their names. So don't forget that, when you guys are with a customer, that if it's a friend, the fact is that they know how to say their name. All right. So if you butcher their name, you sound like a telemarketer, right? You sound like someone who doesn't know them. So that's something my manager taught me was, can you know how to pronounce other names? And I always, oh, and what's their spouse's name? So as I was going through, I'm like, oh, and what's their spouse's name? I always like to have know both their names. So whether you write that down or you put it in your app, like these are the questions I asked. Cool. So I'm just showing you this. I'm like, oh, what area of town? I'm like, are there any, because I was doing more live demos. And if you want to be in certain areas, ask for them, right? Like Donovan will be like, who do you know that lives on Star Island? Who do you know that lives on Fisher Island? Who do you know that? And that's in Miami. Here it would be, who do you know that lives in River Oaks? Who do you know that lives in, Lakes of the Meadows? Like whatever it is, like whether it's neighborhoods, areas, condos, whatever you want to, wherever you want to be, ask for that. I always ask, who do you know who's home during the day? Who do you know who's an early bird? Who do you know is a night owl? Because when I was booking late night demos or early morning, I wanted to know that. This is old, this is very outdated. Something I would ask now too is, who do you know that lives in different time zones, right? And that's where we have the other slide that we show them with the map of like, help me sell in all 50 states. That is something that helps us get more leads in different areas. I think that Nadia has sold, I think, close to all 50 states. But again, she asked for it. She was a person that actually made this, and it says, help me sell in all 50 states, right? So when you're brainstorming at the end, it's like, oh, Miss Susie, who do you know on the West Coast? I'm a night owl. I love doing late night. And then just for the days that I'm motivated and wake up early, who do you know on the East Coast? And just finding that out, because you'll be able to get people, at different times. So being able to ask for that is definitely huge. All right. So back to here. So I'm sharing a lot of things here. I want to show you guys the coaching sheet, which we're going to use here in a moment. And the coaching sheet is when you are actually telling them what to say and then what not to say. Okay. And this is very important, like the what to say and what not to say, because it you don't want them ruining, the actual ability for you to get that appointment, because like they call them and go, hey, I got this kid, Christian, who's selling these Cutco knives, man. These knives are awesome. Do you guys need any knives? You're like, like most people aren't out there shopping for knives right now. So like that's not what you want them to say. So one of the big things you have to make sure that you do is you have to make sure that you actually tell them what to say and what not to say. Okay, so we'll go through that in a minute. So here, so I want to know who's home during the day, who's a night owl, who's an early bird. I love to know, hey, Miss Susie, who loves to shop or like nice things, who loves to cook or is really good at it. And you can just make notes on your paper, if it's taking you long to find them in the app or type, just make notes on your paper and you can put it in the app later. Who do you know who loves to cook or is really good at it? Who do you know that entertains and throws parties all the time? And then I always ask, if I was your son or daughter, right? And I didn't ask son, but I'm like, hey, if I was your daughter, or if they have a kid, I'm like, if I was your son and he was starting to work here, I'm like, who would you want me to go see first? Like, who do you think are the best prospects? And I always wanted to get their top 2 or 3 people. All right. And then as I got more experienced on this, I would get their top like 3 to 5 people. All right. And so then we go to step 2. All right. And so, so let's say, Jalen, your customer says, oh, definitely Miss Sandra. And then my sister-in-law, like, absolutely, Jalen, you have to go see her. Like she loves to cook. She always buys nice things. I mean, my brother's always talking about how she's like, wants to have the best of everything. And so you're like, perfect. So I smile really big when they tell me the top people, and I'm like, okay, awesome. I'm like, I would love to meet them. I'm like, is there any way you can help me get in touch with those 2 to 3 people? I'm like, just to give them a quick call to let them like, make sure that they know that they're expecting my call. I'm like, one, I just think it's way more professional when people know that I'm calling versus, I'm just calling out of the blue. Second, so many people just don't pick up numbers they don't know. I'm like, is that you, Miss Susie? Do you do that? I'm like, I don't pick up numbers I don't know. I'm like, and if those are your top picks, I'm like, I definitely want to meet them. And they're like, oh, okay, yeah, right. That's what I would always say. So I'm like, so if you were me, who are the top ones? And then I'm like, I'd look at them and I'm like, Miss Susie, I'm like, I would love to meet them. All right. And by the way, I gave them free Cutco. Like, we're going to talk about that. Like, for some just started calling. They're like, oh yeah, no problem, honey. Then I didn't offer anything free because they were like all in, and I waited until they stopped, or they're like, okay, I'll get to the rest later. And that's when I would offer free Cutco. And I'm like, well, Miss Susie, if you can get 2 more while I'm here, during our appointment time, I'm like, I'll buy you that pizza cutter that you really wanted. They're like, oh, really? Oh, okay. Let me see. I could get you 2 more. Right. It's like motivated them to work because people love free Cutco. Or if it was a customer that when I asked for yeses was like, oh yeah, I can contact some for you, CJ. I'll call them later and I'll let you know. Okay. I'm like, okay, no problem, Miss Susie. I'm like, that would be great. I'm like, but just so you know, if you could help me get into contact with just 2 while we're in our appointment, I could actually buy you a free vegetable peeler as a thank you. Or I could actually buy you the ice cream scoop you're looking at as a thank you. I'm like, and then you could just get me the rest later. And they're like, I think I could get you 2 real quick, like always, by the way, always. It was very rare someone didn't when you were offering free stuff. So anyway, the next step on here, part C, is now you have to coach them on what to say and what not to say. All right. So again, that coaching sheet that I uploaded into the chat, download it so you have it. But that's this. So by the way, how I had this, and I was making one in the office, it got messed up because I was doing it with dry erase marker, like a dodo head, as my father would say. I need to do it with permanent markers. But when I was a student selling Cutco my first and second summer, I created this coaching sheet. I created this typed out one just for a talk I gave to like the region. But Me personally, I actually had it handwritten on a paper with markers. It said, help me win a scholarship across the top. You know, it had like stars all over it. Like I made confetti, just taking markers and like putting dots all over it. But by the way, psychologically for a customer, one, it shows them that this matters to you and that you actually put time into it. You're not just going through the motions. So just something to think about, like making, like actually like taking time to make your own versus this says he, she. And if you go by he or she, that's fine. But if you don't, like make it yours, right? Like make it pertinent to you. So if you go by she, them, he, whatever you want to do, but just like make this about you. So mine, it said, help me win scholarships across the top and like red magic marker. And then it said what not to say with a, green marker. And then I had the notes, like wrote stuff in like green, but then I would like circle it in blue, like the main things I wanted to stand out. I would underline them, like the words. And so I underlined like my name, Kathy, and then what I was studying, where I'm going to school. And then I underlined showing Cutco. So it was like a scholarship. I underlined scholarship. I underlined showing Cutco, or you can highlight it. And then I had a squiggly line underneath, like even earn college credit. I highlighted paid just to show, right? Like I wanted to make sure they knew I got paid just to show. And then I had no obligation to buy. So like those parts were like highlighted or underlined, so that even if they didn't read everything, it was like Kathy, international business, Palm Beach Atlantic, scholarship, showing Cutco, can even earn college credit, paid just to show, no obligation to buy. Want to make sure that they were hitting those points when they were talking to somebody. So I'd be like, oh, so Miss Claudia, I'm like, just let them know. I'm like, so when you call them, I'm like, just let them know that you have a nice student named Kathy, working towards a scholarship at Palm Beach Atlantic University. If you're not a student, you would say, I'm here with a nice young girl named Kathy, or a nice young lady named Kathy. She's working towards a contest right now and gets paid showing Cutco. Even earn scholarships for like continued education. And so we give cash scholarships because we have a lot of people that, whether it's real estate school, or they want to go to like Tony Robbins, or they want to go to John Maxwell's, a leadership course, just continuing education, whether it's life skills you're learning, or it's business skills, or it's just, basic schooling. This is all stuff that is continued learning. All right. So anyway, she gets paid. So she's working for a scholarship by showing Cutco, can even earn college credit. So you would, take that out if you're not a student. She gets paid to show it. So there's no obligation. Miss Susie, it is so important you let them know, like, I get paid just to show. There's no obligation to buy. Cool. And then would they be willing? And I always had this highlighted, actually. I'm like, would they be willing to help me out? Because I didn't want them going, Cassandra, are you interested? Right? Because if they were interested, they would have called you. Cool. Most people are not interested. Interested is a bad word in Cutco. All right. The word is willing. So would you be willing? All right. So they might not be interested, but they might be willing. Does that make sense? All right. You're going to open the net a little bit more by using that word. And so that's just like psychology and sales. So would you be willing to help her out? And then here's the part, right? And I'm like, and then Miss Susie just tell her, oh, she's actually here right now. I'm like, I'd love to just chat with them real quick and book them. I'm like, because sometimes I have such a hard time getting a hold of people because, again, they don't recognize my number and they're like, oh, okay, yeah. And I'm like, and then please, Miss Susie, do not say like, oh, she's selling knives, or do you need knives? I'm like, or don't talk about the prices. I'm like, let me do that. Okay. I'm like, I'm just looking to do appointments with nice people. All right. And then I'm like, all right, Miss Susie. So while you call those three, I'm going to go ahead and fill out my stuff that I have to fill out. But again, any of them says yes, I'd love to chat with them real quick. Okay. And they're like, all right, awesome. So again, you got to prep the customer. So I took 2-3 minutes to prep the customer, and then I would give them the sheet. And so if you're on virtually, I would pop it up so that they have it up, right? And again, you can make a nicer, cuter one, use Canva, do it on PowerPoint, whatever, and pop it up about you. And so on this, by the way, now in today's world, I'm going to have some, I'm going to see if Jocelyn can make me one on Canva, but I would make this really pretty on Canva. I would have my university, like a picture of me, a picture of my school, like the emblem of my school and the name of the school, like I would have stuff. So like, it's a sexy visual, that almost like some of the stuff you had on your goals page, like about you. Right. And maybe it is that, slide again, but then you just put a text box in the middle in white and it has these coaching things on it. I don't know, but I would get creative so that they're like looking at you and they're seeing your school and they're like, oh yeah, I think she's working for a college. She goes to school here. CJ, he's in the core, graduating from A&M, and he's going, and they like have those pictures, like they get excited to share you with others. So that's really huge. So we tell them what to say, we tell them what not to say. And then we want them to talk to as many as possible. So I personally bought my sample kit in training. It is not a requirement to buy anything to work this job, but it is a perk of the job that you get a select amount of items for 75% off. One-time deal for working here. You guys can purchase those right in your Vector Connect. You go into Vector Connect, more Cutco or more about Cutco, and it's like samples. They sell a bunch. I'll show you guys in a minute. I'll pull it up if you want to know. But anyway, I bought my sample kit because it's 75% off. So you guys get like $400 of stuff for $100. And then there's additional things you can buy. Like I was showing Amanda the other day and her mom, like she's like, oh, I want a can opener. And I'm like, you could buy it for 11 or 12 bucks. I don't know, but it's just a couple things. And again, you don't get multiple at that price because that's just a perk of being a Cutco sales rep. You get to have that so you can own it. So I had stuff. So I always took stuff on my live demos and let them use it while we were going through. And y'all, even though you're showing your virtual presentation, back then we had a book we showed. So even if you're showing your book or even if you're showing your virtual presentation, it's the same presentation. It's just kind of fun to be like, here, you use it, here, try it, right? Like I like having them use them. So I would stay busy. So now online, you can just say, oh, I just need to fill out my paperwork. I need to call my manager to verify my appointment while you work on that, right? Again, you just want to stay busy. That's the thing, is you want to stay busy so that they keep calling. And then every time after, so here's what it would look like, right? So they're talking, they call their first friend and they're like, hey, how are you? I'm like, hey, so I have this young girl, a nice young student named Kathy, who is over doing a Cutco presentation. Anyway, she is a student at Palm Beach Atlantic. She gets paid just to show Cutco. There's no obligation to get anything. She gets paid for every appointment she does, and it really helps her out for her contest. I wanted to see if you'd be willing to help her. And like, oh, okay, great. Yeah, she's actually right here. And I would be like, and so I would do the same thing if I'm on video. Again, I don't know, my brain, I don't know if it was like I just had a baby and had like this like fog in my brain of like not knowing how to translate this. But anyway, I would just right here on Zoom be like, all right, or in person, I do the same thing. I'm like, she's actually right here. Hold on a second. And they would hand me the phone. Or again, on Zoom, I would just prep like, hey, if they can talk to me right now, if you could just put them on speaker, I would just love to just talk to them and book them up. And so I would just say, can I talk to them? And they'll like, oh yeah, hold on. And they'll put them on, and then I was like, put on speaker. And I'm like, hey, Miss Suzanne. I'd be like, yeah, Julie and I are here right now, kind of wrapping up our appointment. Thank you so much for being willing to help me. I'm actually in a huge contest, like she told you, and I need to get 2 more for tomorrow. Or I still need 2 more for tonight, whatever it is. Is there any chance that you could see me on such short notice tonight at blank or blank time or tomorrow? I'm like, okay, awesome. I'm like, thank you so much. I'm like, I could come over. Or where does she live, Miss? They're like, oh no, she's in Virginia. I'm like, oh, I can't come over unless you have a jet, you want to fly me over, but I could do it online, but I'm like, if you're in Houston, I'm like, I love coming in person, but I also can do them online. So what's your best email? So I can send you a confirmation for tomorrow, Jim. Like, okay, excellent. I'm like, thank you so much. I can't wait to meet you. I'm like, awesome. Have a great day. I'm like, all right. And then Susie will be like, okay, honey, I'll talk to you later. We're still here. Okay, bye. Right. That's how it normally went. And then I'd be like, oh yeah, Miss Susie. And so online, guys, virtual high five, baby. If you're on video, like high five, virtual high five. I'm like, let's see if we can get another one. Right. Again, exact same thing in person. That's what I used to do in person as you're going through. So I'm like cheering them on, right, as we're going through, because I want them excited about giving me more people. And then, like I said, we're going to use incentives for more yeses. So If they started calling on their own, let them call until they're like, okay, I'll talk to the rest later. And I'm like, Miss Susie, if you could get, depending where they're at, if they had 4, I'm like, if you can get 1 more, I can give you this for free. The vegetable peeler for free, or if you can get 2 more, and so just using it to see, again, to ring the rag on the amount of yeses you can get, right? Those who have been in my high flyer workshop, like you want to every last drop. So use incentives to get more. And then again, for the person who just says, oh, honey, I'll do that later. No problem. I'm like, okay, no problem. And Spencer's going to go over this on Monday, the objection cycle at the event. But you always want to agree. And then it's, but however, talk logically and then ask again. Okay. So here I'm like, oh, no problem, Miss Susie, you can totally get them to me later. And then, but however, I'm like, but I could actually only get, do the free stuff. Or I'm like, I can, or here, sorry, that would be on a sponsor. I can only get the sponsorship if I get 10 while I'm here. So with the yes recommendation, I'm like, yeah, you could totally get them to me later. I'm like, but Miss Susie, I'm like, if you were able to help me get just two now and get the rest later, I could actually give you a free piece of Cutco as a thank you. I'm like, do you think we could call just get 2 and talk to the rest later and get you a free, that free, and if I know they like something. So I had a lady, she loved the ice cream scoop, right? She bought an essential set at the end. I asked if she wanted to add the ice cream scoop to her order, and she was like, oh, I'm going to have to wait. And I'm thinking in my head, because I was like, it's only $6 more on your deposit today. And by the way, that's a lesson for another day. But when you're tacking on an accessory or something they liked, divided by 5, and you're just giving it will only be $7 more on your deposit, or only be $12 more on your deposit today, right? So anyway, I'm like, oh, Miss Susie, the ice cream scoop would only be, like $6 more on your deposit today. And she was like, oh, no, I'm just gonna have to wait, So I knew she really liked it, but she didn't want to pull the trigger. So I already knew in my head, that's what I was using, because I knew I had space on her order to give it for free, but I was going to use it as free stuff for getting more referrals. Okay. So at the end, when I got when I asked for yeses, and she's like, oh yeah, I'll come to you later. Then I said, hey, Miss Susie, is there any chance that I'm like, one, agree, right? So I'm like, oh, totally. I'm like, you can totally get them to me later. I'm like, but I'm like, if you were able to help me get just 2 right now and then talk to the rest later, I can actually get you that ice cream scoop that you really wanted, right? And she was like, oh, really? And I was like, yeah. I'm like, so just throwing that out there. I'm like, if you have a couple minutes, then we could call like your top 2, and then we could just talk to the rest later. And she was like, okay, I could do that. And I knew she really liked it. And she ended up getting me those 2, and she's like, I could call a couple more. She got me 5, by the way, 5 yeses. And I booked 2 of them while I was at her house, and then I talked to the rest right when I finished that appointment. And so, guys, these yeses, and I'm going to share this before, or actually, let me finish this, and then I'll give you a couple last things. They do that, and then while they're finishing that, I would forward them a text heads up to send to the rest of them while I finished putting everything else away. And so I want them to text their friends. So this was something that again, I love being in person. I know they're doing it. And then you can do that virtually too. Sometimes they do it, sometimes they don't. But I want them texting them, and you can use a text message that's in the app. It generates an auto text for you, or you can use your own text. This was Mario's text. Mario said, FIU student named Mario Sabates working on a scholarship is going to give you a call. There's no obligation to get anything. He's great. It's just a quick presentation on a product called Cutco. You'll enjoy. He's awesome. You better see him. So that's what he would give to his customers. And he's like, Miss Susie, can you send this to all your customers? He's like, you're welcome to edit it if you want. But I think everyone was like, no, this is perfect. I love it. They would just use it. So I love giving them like a sample message that I like. A lot of times people will just use that. My lady who called the 12 people, they called the 36 people while I was there and got a hold of 12 for me. When I did the coaching sheet with her and I said, hey, Miss Susie, please tell them this, please don't tell them this. And then she said, can I just grab, she grabbed the sheet for me. She's like, can I just use this? And she literally was on the phone and she's like, hey, what's up? What's going on? Hey, I can't talk too long. I have someone at the house, but actually her name is Kathy. She's studying international business at Palm Beach Atlantic University. She's actually working right now towards a scholarship by showing Cutco, and she can even earn college credit. She gets paid to show it. There's no obligation to buy. Would you be willing to help her? Okay, cool. She's actually here right now. And she looked at me, but I was talking to her husband because her husband was showing me all his chili cook-off like trophies and stuff. And she's like, I'll have her call you right after. Okay, I'll have her call you, but I've got to go. She's actually still here. We're working on something. Okay, awesome. Thanks for helping her. Calls the next one. Doesn't pick up. Calls the next one. I hear what the next one. Hey, what's up? Hey, I can't talk long. I have someone at the house right now, but that's why I'm calling. Her name is Kathy. And she's like just going right. I'm like literally reading word for word. I was like, awesome, Anna. Fact is, if they do that, you're going to get a lot of yeses, because it tells them exactly what to say. They'll nail it. And then the end of the week, you guys want to keep getting more of the best appointments because these people will give you more leads. They'll say, oh, I have another person for you. Or on Facebook, like their friends will comment and you'll get more great leads from them as well. Is at the end, follow up with customers at the end of the week with contests, like anything you are working on that week, like give them an update. All right. And so post on Facebook, like, hey guys, I got to blank, like always post updates so your customers see where you got to. Did you get to your goal for the week? Did you get to your goal for that? They get excited to do that. You can always ask who else they know who might be willing to do a quick appointment. All right. They always have more people. So I want to make sure you guys know and understand that as you guys are going through. All right. So again, to recap, and I'll just share a couple quick things here. Number one is you want to make sure you crush your goals so that they like you and want to help you, right? And be a part of your journey. Like they're excited about what you're working on and they're excited to help you land that internship or get these great skills or whatever it might be. Number two, ask for recs properly. Use that VIA recommendations approach. By the way, you newbies, that's huge. Thank you, John, for posting that in there, and it has a sponsorship stuff. So if you guys didn't grab that already, I'm gonna repost it. But newbies, you can start using this now, even though we haven't covered it yet. Since you guys were here, you get a head start on that. All right. Grab this and ask for recs like this. This is how the top guys ask for recs. So make sure from the meeting chat, you guys grab that and you're utilizing that because it really explains it. The thing it's the same of what's in your approach, but more because it explains the sponsorship exactly how I explained the sponsorship when I was a rep. So this is like how I asked for recs, how I was taught to do that. Then once you get those recommendations, then what I taught you guys this morning, you want to qualify the recommendations so you know about people. The more you know about them, the more you can build connection, the more you can also like recommend things for them, right? If they tell you, oh, they have 2 houses or they love to shop, I'm like, oh, Miss Sandra said you love to shop or that you're one of the best gift givers. I'm like, have you finished all your holiday shopping yet? I'm like, have you ever given Cutco as a gift if they own Cutco? If not, I'm like, I'm like, I know you just saw Cutco for the first time. I'm like, but I'm like, this is a really popular gift amongst Cutco owners. And people that own Cutco always love to gift it. Like, I don't know if you have any weddings, birthdays, things coming up, or even for holidays that you might consider giving Cutco as a gift. And like, oh my gosh, what a great idea. So like bringing that up. Anyway, back to like, do you know about them? Because that's going to help you maximize your appointments and also get some of the best people. And so once I know they're top people, then I'm like, hey, and if I was your daughter or if I was your son and he was getting started, who would you go see first? Like, who would you tell me or him to go see first? And find out who those top people are. Once we do that, I'm like, hey, I'm like, I'm like, if those are your top people, Miss Susie, I would love to meet them. I'm like, is there any way you can help me get in touch with them? And just like give them a quick call so that they're expecting my call. Like, I think it's way more professional when they like know that I'm going to be calling versus just calling them out of the blue. But also so many people don't pick up numbers that they don't know. And if those are your top picks, I would love to meet them. All right. Then pull up your coaching sheet. And I'm like, so basically here's what to tell them. I'm like, let them know that I'm a student here. I'm doing this, and so go through. If you need help with your coaching sheet or you want me to look at it and make any edits, I can totally help you with that. Okay. And then tomorrow, 1:30 to 8:30, I'm going to be at the office all day working on skill sets, helping you with recs, helping you with goals, helping you with your slide deck, helping you with whatever you need. Come by the office. 1:30 to 8:30, hands-on coaching training. I'm available all day. Y'all, I'm not available on Sundays typically. So right now, as we're getting ready for the push and during the push period, I will. But I will be at the office all day, working on stuff and helping anybody who wants help. So just know we have office hours that'll be open. So coach them on what to say, what not to say. Sorry, my allergies this morning were like so acted up, my sinuses. But coach them on what to say, what not to say with that sheet. We want to make a sheet. Talk to as many people as you can while you have them there. All right. Use a high five to get more, like just get them excited and keep going, and use incentives for more yeses. So what I was going to say before is knowing like, you want to reach your yeses immediately. So yeses, my manager taught me, he's like, yeses are like ice cubes. Okay. When are ice cubes most effective to be used? When they've been sitting out of the freezer for like an hour, or immediately? When are they most effective? Anybody? Right away. Right. And so yeses are like ice cubes. All right. They work really well if used immediately, right? If not, they melt away. It's like a normal other lead. But when you have these yeses, do you guys know how easy and how enjoyable phone time is when you're calling? Like the best is them helping the alley oops, right? Because with the alley oops or them actually letting you talk to them, boom, like you don't even have to do a whole phone approach. Did you guys hear what I did? When they hand me the phone, all I said was, thank you. I'm working so hard for a goal. I haven't hit my goal for this day. Can I do this time or this time? That's it. So write that down. That's your approach with an alley-oop. If they hand you the phone, they already told them what you're doing. All you have to do is say, thank you. I'm working so hard for my goal. I haven't hit my goal for here, and offer 2 times. Cool. That's all you have to do. And then you just book them. So they're booked, right? But if they're not booked, guess when I'm calling those yeses? My 5 calls after. You guys know how you want to do 5 calls before, 5 calls after every demo, right? And so right when I finish that demo, those are the people I'm calling immediately. Because why? They're expecting my call, right? And I even told Miss Susie, let them know that it's going to be a 954 number. Cool. Because I had a different area code than where I went to school. And also I was calling people from all over the nation, right? If they recommended me to their sister in Virginia or their sister in whatever, if they see a different area code, sometimes they think it's a telemarketer or something, or a bill collector, right? So tell them your area code. So you can add that to the coaching sheet, by the way. I would do that in today's world, especially with us doing virtual demos. I would add your area code and say, let them know I'll be calling from a 713 number. Let them know I'll be calling from a 954 number. And so that way they know that. All right. And so that way, when I called right after, they picked up, and I always double tap text. And so this is another tip that you guys are going to learn about, and then we're going to role play this. But double tap text is you always want to call 2 times in a row when you're calling leads. Okay. So we typically, I don't talk about this much with people that although it's good for everybody because sometimes like they might have their phone on do not disturb and you're not going to get through once, but if you call 2 times in a row, you will get through. All right. But with someone that you don't know, you might call and they're like, I don't know who that is. And then you call again and they're like, who is this? Right. And they'll pick up and you're like, hey, it's like, oh, hey. So I double tap, and if they don't pick up when I call twice in a row, so every time I call leads, I call twice in a row, always. And if they don't pick up, then I shoot a text. Hey, it's Kathy, Julian Morrison's friend. Just had a quick question for you. When's the best time to contact you? Right. And so the text message is just to find out when's the best time to contact them. And then they're like, oh, right now, honey, sorry, didn't recognize the number. Or, oh, was just putting my kid down for a nap. Right now is great. Or, oh, call me in an hour, right? And I'm like, oh, I have an appointment right now, but I can call you right after, right? And so that way you're always getting, but guys, those leads are not, you don't have to do much. It's just like, oh yeah, when do you want to come, right? Like they already said, yes, I'll help you. And so all you're doing is like booking that appointment. So it makes it so much easier. So you're so much more efficient. You get so many more of the best appointments because I'm always having them call their best people, and so it's going to just grow your business at another level. All right. So I'd love to hear some takeaways and any questions, and then we're going to role play this. And then we're going to wrap up and go into phone time. Here, main benefit of this is that a lot of people don't pick up the numbers that they don't know. And so now you know that you can definitely get in touch with their best people versus them not picking up every time you're calling because they have no idea what number keeps calling them, right? When their friend called them, they know, we get them on the phone, boom, they're booked. So you don't miss out on those people and you're growing your business with the best people. That's the objective of this. Cool. And again, saves time, more efficient, more enjoyable to just call people and yes. Okay, great. Be booking up your demos. All right.
Okay. Well, guys, give yourself, first of all, high fives all around. Very nice. Kathy is so right, guys. Like whether it's in person or like virtual high fives are the best. All right, getting your customers' energy moving. And thank you, Kathy. This is just great reminders, guys. I wrote down a ton of notes when it came to this. The first thing, guys, is this makes phone, like for me anyway, like phone calls was the part of the job that I have seen the most growth within myself, right? It wasn't the easiest when I started, but I'm so glad like I listened to Kathy. I showed up to workshops because it was a process. And every week I felt more confident and more confident, all right? Because guys, whether you're calling people you know, right, or people you don't know, like recommendations, right? That for that like the I'm always reminded like first impressions matter. They do. And you don't have to, it's not like CJ has to be a perfect like first impression, right? But it's like, what do they leave? Like, how do they feel when you leave the conversation, right? Do they say, oh, Aiden, like that's the ninth kid, right? Or it's like, oh man, Tony, this is a hardworking individual. Like I'm excited to help them, right? Like it makes the demo more fun because they have the right expectations there of what like you're doing, right? Like it was kind of like a badge of honor for me, Donovan, whenever I was going to the presentation and the customer remembered like a little bit about me, like, oh yeah, like, you know, like you have two sisters, like you're doing this is why you're working, you know, whatever it might be. Like I felt like they were more excited to see me and I was more excited to see them, right? The demo was just more fun. So guys, number one, like this makes phone time so much easier. All right. Number two, all right, is when you're doing like spending time with the recommendations. Like don't feel like you're like, because your customer, if you get when I was a newer rep, I got like, oh, I want to talk to my customer first, right? I was like, Kathy, like, how do I kind of like help my customers see like I'm not going to bug their friends? And by the way, this was not just like my recommendations. This was some of my good friends' parents, right? They're like, oh, like, you know, Alicia, like, I don't know, like, let me talk to them first. And I was like, Miss Sandra, you've seen me grow up for the past like 15 years, right? Like, you know me. And this, like, like having this conversation with them, like taking 20, 30, 40 minutes to like walk them through, asking them questions, Emmanuel, about each one of their friends, like I always got more. And they felt way more comfortable reaching out for me to their friends and me reaching out to them, right? Because they felt like I genuinely cared, which I did. Like I didn't look, because they might think like, oh, Cassidy, you're just trying to get $20 from every one of my friends, like bother their time, take 30 minutes, right? Or sell them knives, whatever it might be, right? But when they saw me, hey, like, is this person married? Oh, great. Like, how do you know them? How long? Oh, they live in your neighborhood? Heck, how many kids do they have? Hey, by the way, just in case, what's his husband's name? Right? Cool. Like, I don't know if you guys ever called the wife and the husband picks up. It's kind of like, oh, wait. Right? Like, hey, is Mrs. Jones there? It's like, why you call my wife? Right? You know, like, that's just, you're right. So it's like, oh, hey, is this Jalen? Okay, cool. Yeah, you're married to Miss Kathy. Okay, great. You know, like, yeah, Miss Leslie told me to give her a call. That's something I'm working on for school and work, right? And so they just felt way more comfortable, guys. In my demos, my average order, my show percentage, right? 2 appointments, I got rescheduled on so much less, right? And so, guys, this right here, keep it super simple, okay? Just spend time with your customers, qualify the top 5, right? Every list you should have, okay, who are the 5 to 10 people I'm calling from this person? Right? If I was their son, like who would they have me go see first? Right? It makes your job so much easier because guys, when Kathy told me this, I was like, makes sense. 80% of your business will be done by the top 20%. So like the top 20% of every list that you get, guys, 10, 15, 20, however many it is, the top 2 to 3, all right, are going to be the ones that, yeah, like are going to answer. That's why it's like a 1 to 10, you know, 2 to 10 rule for recommendations. So anyway, really helpful. Thank you, Kathy. Yeses make your job so much easier.